Everybody, this is Nick Barta, Security First Financial. Thanks for joining us. I am joined today by Sana Hasan with Land Title. I've known Sana for a very long time. We've been kicking around the industry together here for quite a while. We're going to talk a little bit today about kind of the changes with NAR, how to use down payment assistance to help you guys get paid, and some of the changes that are out there and how not to miss out on some buyers. So first of all, Sana, for those of you who don't know you, how'd you get into title?
Oh, God, on accident. 10 years ago, it's been 10 years now, I came upon, just kind of looking for jobs. And at the time, I wanted to go into, believe it or not, being a lender.
No,
I wanted to go into the mortgage field. And so I was interviewing with a mortgage company, and then they kind of introduced me to Land Title, and I applied, and the rest is history. Here I am, 10 years later.
Very cool. You avoided the dark side of lending, so stayed in the title side. Well, yeah, we've always enjoyed working with you, and so I'm glad that
thank you.
We could hang out for a little bit. So, I mean, big changes obviously in the real estate world with the NAR settlement. We're about a month in now. What are you kind of hearing from the agents out there as far as big changes?
I think there was a lot of buildup to it, right? A lot of realtors just kind of felt like they didn't know. They didn't know what to expect and how this was going to affect them. I think now that it's actually in place and it's actually taken effect, people are a little bit more relaxed. The biggest thing is, I will say that what I'm hearing from my realtors is, how are buyers going to pay for commission if the seller decides not to? And so I think that's where everyone's just kind of trying to figure out what's the best way to not advertise it, but just kind of have options.
Sure.
And know that they have options that they can offer to their buyers, because not only, and we'll kind of go into it as we talk a little bit more about interest rates, but not only are interest rates higher than what people want it to be, but also now they have to come up with down payment.
Sure.
And sorry, not down payment. They have to come up with
the
paying their
commission.
buyer's commission.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big question right now, that people want to have answers to and options that they can provide to their buyers.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know that we've seen like a huge change in the way, purchases are done. I would say the one thing that we're seeing more now than we've seen is sellers maybe not offering 2.8%. They might be offering 2% or 2.5%. And so, some agents are trying to figure out how to get paid that extra 0.8 or, 0.3 or whatever it is. And so we're seeing a lot more of that coming back on the buyer. A lot of seller concessions where, they're getting seller concessions for their buyer, and then they're using some of those to actually pay their commission. So we're seeing a lot of that. I one of the things that I think is, that I question right now is kind of the listing agents out there that are, talking to their sellers and they're, encouraging their sellers to pay less than what's customary in our market, which is usually at least 2.5 to 2.8. Then you kind of question, okay, as a listing agent, are you discounting the amount of work that you do as a real estate agent? Because having been a lender and being involved in transactions that have no real estate agents involved, I can tell you that it makes a huge difference. People lose money by not using real estate agents or realtors. And, and so my biggest encouragement for realtors out there is know your worth. You guys are worth what you do. It's hard work. You should get paid for it. And so,
Correct.
Yeah. And I think that, we had a post the other day that was talking about interest rates. And so interest rates are coming down. The Fed just lowered rates 0.5%, which is great. Of course, my phone rings off the hook because everybody's like, hey, my rate went down 0.5%. Doesn't exactly work that way. It takes a little bit of time for that to filter through, but that will eventually bring mortgage rates down. So, what's going to happen is our market will start to heat up. I hope, I'm probably one of the few people in the mortgage industry says that I hope interest rates don't go down really fast. Because I don't think that's good for our market. I think that'll be, really tough on the market. When this, when the market tightens up, I think that it's going to become even that more, it's going to become more important for agents to have options. because sellers are going to figure out that they don't have to pay the buyer's agent. We've given them that out. I think you're going to have more discounted, buyer's agents compensation that's being offered. So, but I think one of the things we wanted to talk about a little bit is how to get that. So, we do a lot of down payment assistance. Don't turn off the video yet. It's not a bad word. Down payment assistance is really helpful for a lot of people who don't have the money to put down, or in this case, maybe they have the money to put down, but they don't have the money to cover buyer's agents' commissions. So, very exciting that in the last 3 weeks, both CHAFA and Metro DPA have made announcements that you can use their down payment assistance to cover buyer agents' commissions. So even if you have somebody has their own down payment, but they just can't quite have enough to cover the buyer's agent commission, down payment assistance is going to be an option for them. So a lot of great changes in the down payment assistance programs that have come up. So, and I think we were just looking interest rate wise, over the last year, we haven't heard a lot. People have said, oh, interest rates are getting a little bit better. Mm-hmm. Well, they've gotten a lot better because a year ago they were really bad. Like interest rates were in the 7s, sometimes even the 8s. Mm-hmm. And so, from then until now, I figured a payment on a $450,000 house, and it was about $400 less today than it was a year ago. Mm-hmm. And so what that does is for every 0.5% or every 1% that the interest rate comes down, that puts 5 million more buyers on the market. So everybody that's been on the sideline waiting and telling you, hey, I'm going to wait for rates to come back down, that's great for them. But, you can always refinance a mortgage. When those house prices come up, they're going to come up and they're going to stay, and that's going to happen. I mean, we've been fairly flat in Denver for at least the last 12 months, maybe 18 months. We've had maybe a 2% gain.
And I think I will say a lot of our realtors, when we're talking to them, they have a lot of buyers mm-hmm. that are waiting, right? They're waiting on the sideline to say, we want interest rates to come down before we make a move. Like you said, for every percentage that goes down, we have 5 million buyers that are waiting to come into the market. What do you think that's going to do? As we're seeing interest rates going down, right? We're seeing a trend going downwards.
Sure.
What do you think that's going to do?
Well, I mean, we've all lived through it. This has been one of the more unusual markets I've been in. I've been mm-hmm. doing it for 37 years. And very seldom do you have negotiating power as a buyer, certainly to get seller concessions. I mean, that was unheard of. During the pandemic, we were you're not getting any concessions, and you're paying $40,000 over the list price, and there's 18 offers paying $40,000 over. So, I don't think we're going to get back to those crazy times, but I do think that the first thing that's going to happen is, unfortunately, buyer's agents' commission is going to get cut. Second thing that's going to happen is seller concessions are going to become not available. And then you're going to start seeing multiple offer stuff. And when we start seeing multiple offer, situations, then prices are going to go up. So, I mean, and that could all happen very quickly. We've been in that upper 6 range, lower 7 range. So when we drop into those 5s, you have a whole group of people who bought houses during the pandemic, and they did it on the fly because you didn't really get a choice. You put in an offer, didn't get it. You put in an offer, you didn't get it until you got the one that you actually got. Some people aren't happy with their house, but they're at 3%, so they're not willing to sell the house and take a new payment. Mm-hmm. They don't like the house they're living in. So I think there's a big pent up invoice demand that I think that's going to hit the market too, which hopefully will help us from the prices just going through the roof. But I think that once we get down into the 5s, those people are more apt to move up, to go ahead and sell the house and find something else. But if that doesn't happen and we just see our inventory dwindle, then it's going to be just absolutely pandemonium, and we're going to be back in the situation mm-hmm. where there's bidding wars and there's no concessions, and then I think it does. I think we will have to question what happens. Then I think it's going to be that much more important for buyers to have enough money to help pay for their agents. So
with that, I do want to ask you. We're going to have more buyers, right? as we're going to see the market softening a little bit. What is the new DPA with Security First Financial?
So there's a couple different things that have come out recently.
DPA is down payment assistance.
Yes, okay. Down payment assistance. So there's really exciting stuff that came out. So first of all, CHFA, Colorado Housing Finance Authority, we do a ton of those. Fortunately, I've been very fortunate to be very involved with them. I've been on their lender advisory board in the past, and they've come up with some great programs. The new stuff is that they've got a first generation program. So that's a program that if nobody has ever owned a house in your family, so if you haven't owned a house or your parents didn't own a house, you, instead of getting a normal down payment assistance is 4% of the loan amount. So a $400,000 house, you get $16,000. With this program, if you haven't owned or your parents didn't own, you automatically get $25,000. So $25,000 to use however you want: buyer's agent commission, closing cost, down payment. So
that's, you just kind of, made a big point here. Down payment assistance can be used towards buyer agent commission.
Yep, absolutely. And that they both just announced that was okay in the last 3 weeks. And so that's one good program. They also have a home access program. So if there's somebody in the house that has a disability, it doesn't have to be the borrower, but if they have, if a spouse has a disability or they have any children or the borrower themselves has a disability, they get the $25,000 as well. Plus, they get a special interest rate. So the interest rate is usually an eighth to a quarter better than their regular rates. Really helps people, that have a disability in the house. The other thing that, CHFA doesn't allow co-signers, so that does make it a little bit different. If you have somebody who doesn't quite make enough money, you can't bring in a parent or anything to co-sign for them. This home access program for disabled individuals does allow for that a co-signer, so that's really good news for people. I mean, they announced it, I'm going to say 45 days ago, maybe 60 days ago, and we closed 2 of them yesterday. And people, wow, took advantage of that $25,000. The first generation, we've already closed a couple of them. And there are some, there's some other changes with Metro DPA we can get into too. Those are big changes for CHFA. I think one of the things that there's a lot of misconceptions about down payment assistance. There's a lot of misconceptions about FHA financing. This comes from agents all the time. My guy can't use down payment assistance because he wants to do conventional. Well, you can do conventional financing with down payment assistance. Doesn't have to be FHA. But if it is FHA, it gives them a little more flexibility. You don't have to be a first-time home buyer. You don't have to have perfect credit. 620 credit score gets you in to the CHFA program or the Metro DPA program. So, I think that there's a lot of people out there, like lenders even, that will say, hey, don't do CHFA, don't do down payment assistance. It's too hard. The income limits are too low. Unfortunately, it's just misinformation. And a little secret, some lenders don't want to do it because they don't get paid as much on CHFA loans. So not really the way you should do it. As a lender, you should put your borrower into whatever situation is going to be best for them. But that's unfortunately not just all the case.
And I will say, because with Nick being the top 1% loan originator in the country, you've done quite a bit of CHFA loans.
Yeah.
Why do you think people do shy away or think that it's hard to do a CHFA loan?
Well, I think that my team and I were really well versed in them. So we do a ton of them. We did 475 of them last year. We helped 475 individuals buy houses and families. So just the volume of knowing how to do them, and I think that what happens, most lenders you run into, they do 1 or 2 a year. And so, just like anything else, if you do 1 or 2 a year, you're probably not going to be that good at it. Mm-hmm. So they don't want to do them. And I get that. I have programs like that I don't like to do that are, I'll still do them if it's the best thing for the customer, but I'm not the greatest lender at them. With CHFA, we do so many of them. That's another thing. Oh, they take 60 days. They take 90 days. You can't get them approved. CHFA takes forever. Like, all of that is just misinformation. CHFA reviews a file, if they have to review it, in 24 hours. We close Chaffa loans in 20 days all the time. Like there just is, there's no truth to the fact that they're hard and that it takes a long time. As long as you know what you're doing, it's a great program. Metro DPA is a great program. That's another program. Chaffa is available statewide. Metro DPA is available in a lot more places than people think. It used to be the city and county of Denver. They've expanded to where it's the whole metro area, a lot up north, Fort Collins, Loveland. They go up north. They don't go out east and they don't go down south. They don't go up in the mountains, but they have a big area. The nice thing with Metro DPA, they just changed. They used to be a forgivable second. You got the silent second, and then it forgave over the first 3 years. Problem with that is they couldn't be competitive interest rate wise, so their interest rates were really high. Mm-hmm. So just recently they changed to the same kind of profile that Chaffa does, where it is a silent second. You don't make any payments on it. They don't charge any interest. It just kind of sits there, but their interest rates are much better now. The nice thing with Metro DPA is they have a higher income limit. That's the other thing is people always ask me, people if they make more than $50,000, they can't qualify for down payment assistance. Well, Chaffa is $165,950, and Metro DPA is $195,900. So
that's the income limit.
That's the income limit for for your qualifying income. So even if you had two people that made $300,000, but one of them made $194,000, you could do Metro DPA. So I mean, that there's just a lot of excuses that people use not to use DPA. So, don't shy away from it because you think your person makes too much money, or credit wise, again, 620. As long as they have okay credit, they're usually going to fit into that. So, yeah.
And also with DPA, now that you can use it towards buyer's agent commission, I think that's a win-win situation.
Yeah.
But I do want to go over some questions from our last webinar.
Sure. Yeah.
So, if you're okay with me asking those questions,
shoot them out. I probably already I tend to ramble, so I probably already ran through some of these. But yeah, let's hit the questions.
Sounds good. Okay, so my lender said Chaffa loans take 60 days to close. Is that true?
Yeah, we just kind of covered that a little bit. It just isn't true. Like you just. It can. I suppose it could take 90 days to close if you don't know what you're doing or you're not doing anything, you're not doing your job. But really, the only difference between a Chaffa loan and a regular loan, depending on what it is, if it's if it has to be reviewed by Chaffa, not all of them do, but if it has to be reviewed by Chaffa, you're adding 24 hours to your process. And the buyer, from the buyer standpoint, they have to take a home buyer education class. Mm-hmm. That's it. Those are the only differences. Everything else fits into, as long as they don't make too much money and they have a 620 FICO score, they're good. And they certainly don't take, like I said, we've closed them as quick as 15 days. Our normal is probably 20 to 25 days. That's just what, the agents that we work with are very comfortable giving us a 20 or 25 day close, and we do those all the time.
Great. The next one, I know you already hit on that, but just want to reiterate, what is the income limit? I heard it was around $50,000.
Yeah, we hear that a lot, where it's like, oh, yeah, you make too much money. Borrowers will call us and say, hey, my lender said that I make too much money for this program, but I'm seeing online that it looks like it's $162,960 or it's $195,600. I'm like, so you can actually make really good money and still get this. You can be. And you can have two wage earners and still fit into this program. I mentioned that it's qualifying income too on some of the programs. So what that means is it's just who we put on the loan. So we've had people come in that they don't have a big down payment, but maybe they're one person makes $140,000, the other makes $60,000, so they're just over the limit, and we just put the person that makes $140,000 on the loan, and then they qualify for down payment assistance. So as long as you kind of are familiar with what the program allows, mm-hmm. It's a pretty easy process, and people can definitely make good money. So.
Okay. Now, is it possible to get a down payment assistance borrower under contract in a tight market?
Yeah. So. I get that question all the time because people are nervous about, okay, if we take somebody out and they don't have 10% down or even an FHA loan, it's hard to get an FHA loan under contract. And so, fortunately we were, during the pandemic with all of the crazy numbers and people going over and multiple offer things, we still had, we were still getting people under contract at that point with, with down payment assistance and with FHA loans. So it certainly works in a tight market. I think for me, it helped a lot of people who had, almost the down payment or had some money, but they needed to be able to compete in that tight market. So they needed a little more money, so we had qualified a lot of people that were doing appraisal gaps and they had the money for down payment. But if the appraisal came in low, they didn't have that money. So then we would qualify them down payment assistance. And if the appraisal came in low, we'd use their money for the gap and the down payment assistance for their down payment. So I really think that, packaged right, there's certainly a place for down payment assistance in any market. So
it sounds like, in other words, down payment assistance is created to benefit the borrower.
Absolutely.
In every market, you're finding ways. Back in 2020 when appraisals weren't coming at what they bid at, you guys were helping with that, and now it sounds like you are able to help with buyer's agent commissions using the down payment assistance. Yeah,
I think that's the big shift that we're seeing is that people are going to need, people are probably going to need more money, when they're buying a house, if, depending on where this market goes. But, if somebody comes to you as a real estate agent and they don't have a big down payment, even if they come to you and they have the down payment, but they're buying a house that maybe needs a little bit of work, or they want to have money for furniture, down payment assistance is a great opportunity for them to, be able to borrow the additional down payment at zero interest with no payments. And, and then the nice thing with it is that, a lot of times people will ask me, well, are the interest rates like really, really high for that? And the answer is no. I mean, they're really very, very comparable to regular interest rates, maybe slightly higher, maybe 0.25% higher or something. But, you're getting into we have people buying homes today with $1,000 out of pocket, with seller concessions, and they'll put $3,000 in earnest money back and get a $2,000 check at closing. So, and they can save all of the money they do have to buy a couch or buy appliances or whatever they need. So
a lot of these you have covered, but I will ask. Another person asked, how much does a borrower have to have in the transaction with DPA loans? Yeah,
so the minimum, I just mentioned $1,000. CHFA has a minimum of $1,000. So you have to, as a buyer, you have to put at least $1,000 into the transaction. So if you get a big seller concession and you don't need any money, you're still going to have $1,000 in. At that point, we would either lower the down payment assistance or lower their first mortgage payment. So Metro DPA is a little bit different. You actually don't have there's no requirement for any money in. So you could actually buy a house for zero down with Metro DPA. We still see people usually between $1,000 and probably $3,000 out of pocket when they're using down payment assistance when we get some seller concessions. So, but yeah, gives them, it's a great option for most people, quite honestly.
Awesome. The last one I will ask is, does everyone need to be a first-time home buyer?
So Metro DPA, you don't have to be a first-time home buyer at all. There's no rule whatsoever. With CHFA, there's one program where you have to be, it's just the first step. That program, you have to be a first-time home buyer. All of the other programs allow for, you could even own a home. Like you could currently own a home and use down payment assistance to buy another house. You can do that with Metro DPA too. So, so you certainly don't have to be a first-time home buyer. So yeah, it's a good program. I'll mention also Metro DPA. A couple of the changes, with a couple of the changes they made. One of the nice things for Metro DPA is they allow co-signers on everything. So if you have somebody, and we see this a lot when you have somebody who's self-employed newly, maybe somebody's been a real estate agent for a year or a year and a half and they don't have the 2-year history, but mom and dad can co-sign for them. They've got good credit or whatever. They can do that. We can use a co-signer and then use down payment assistance. The other side of that is with Metro DPA, they also allow multiple units. So CHFA, they require 1 unit. Like you can't even have an ADU. But with Metro DPA, you could buy a fourplex, duplex, triplex, fourplex, and it would still work with that program. So that's really when that's where we've seen Metro DPA in the past, and it's Again, used to be a little higher FICO score. Now they're both 620. So there's just a lot of options when it comes to down payment assistance. So if you have a buyer that is not, is not just rolling in cash, or just wants to see what's out there, definitely, take a look at, down payment assistance. You can always find our information at nickbarta.com. And then I'm sure Sana will be brightening your doorsteps at some point in time. She seems to be pretty good at that. So.
Well, thank you, Nick. And I will put in there, I think a lot of people sometimes are concerned about how quickly you close a transaction. I know that Security First Financial and Nick Barta's team are pretty good about closing them, even in as low as 20 days. Along with our team, especially on the refinance or just our closing teams at Land Title, we have teams dedicated that are specifically working on, certain types of transactions. Mm-hmm. So whether it's a refinance, we have a team for our refinance, we have our team for our residential resale. So together, when we work as a team, we're actually pretty quick at getting things done and ensuring that you get to that closing table. And with that, I will invite all our viewers to come join us at the panel. We will be doing a panel on October 9th. It is a lunch and learn at our Land Title location at 12 o'clock. We will be sending out formal invites as well. But I would highly encourage you to attend, especially if you have some questions regarding what can you do to provide options for your buyers. How can you help them get into that next home by giving them as much benefit, as much, options that there are out there, specifically with Nick Barta's team. They do a lot of DPAs, a lot of CHAFA loans, but just they have different options as well to help your buyer get into that home. So please make sure that you attend our panel and our seminar, and we will look forward to seeing you there. But thank you so much, Nick. This was very informative. You're definitely very knowledgeable. I see why you're the top loan originator.
Well, thanks, Sana. Always good to hang out, and thanks for joining me too.
Yes, thank you.
See you guys.
Bye.